If you're an entrepreneur or are aspiring to be, then let's talk about building your personal brand as an entrepreneur. Grab your cup of tea and let's dive into it. What is your personal brand? My favorite definition is that your personal brand is what people think about you, how you make them feel, what they say about you, especially when you're not in the room, and how they remember you. Now, by that definition, then, you already have a personal brand, whether you choose to care about it or not. Personal branding is simply choosing to be intentional about what that brand represents. And as an entrepreneur, this can have added value to your business because, as I mentioned, people connect with people. People buy from other people. So how can you build your personal brand as an entrepreneur? Today I'm going to share my 6 tips to do that. Let's dive into tip number 1. Tip number 1 is to write your personal brand story. Steve Jobs famously said, "The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and the agenda for an entire generation that is to come." So if people buy from other people, then what is the story that actually led you to be doing the work that you are currently doing? How much have you reflected on that reason that you are actually in business? Was there a defining moment in your life, in your career, that led you to this particular path? And how can you articulate what that is? What you might find is that that defining moment is something that your audience either experienced for themselves or they just can connect with it as something that is relatable and authentic and personal, as opposed to just the product or service that you might be pitching to them. So how do you actually go about developing your personal brand story or your brand story in general so that it incorporates your personal brand story into it as well? If you are an entrepreneur and you have not read this book yet, then this is an absolute must read. It is Donald Miller's book, Building a Story Brand. And in the book, he highlights a step-by-step framework to help you to develop your brand story in a way that is meaningful to your audience, so they can actually understand how you help them to solve a particular problem. Because that is essentially what business is. It is about offering something that is going to help your audience to solve a problem that they have. And using the story of your business, you can highlight how you are able to do that. You can also highlight the unique skills, expertise, and capabilities that you bring to that product or service that you are offering the marketplace and your potential customers. And remember that when you really think about your skills, capabilities, and your expertise with this lens of your unique story, there is nobody in the marketplace who has had your exact life experience or your exact professional experience. So you automatically have an opportunity to be able to differentiate yourself in the marketplace through your unique story and background. So if you are an entrepreneur, make sure that you check out Donald Miller's book, Building a Story Brand. But to simplify the framework that he shares for you, it is essentially that you have a character who is your customer, who has a problem, who meets a guide, that is where you come in, who has a plan, who calls them to action, who helps them to avoid failure, and who shows them what success looks like. So when you are developing your personal brand story in relation to your business, keep in mind that your hero of the story is not actually you, it is your audience, it is your potential customer. Your position in that story is to be the guide. You're the person who has the unique expertise, capabilities, or product offering that is going to be able to assist them in the problem that they have. Tip number 2 is to put a face to a name. When you're developing your marketing and your branding, make sure that you personalize it wherever you can. For example, you can choose to highlight a generic office building that you might have, or you can choose to personalize your marketing, your branding. Where possible, where can you integrate a human element into your story that your audience can connect with? Remember that humans are primarily visual people. The ability to read and write, that is something that actually came much later in our evolution. For thousands of years, we were hardwired to prioritize visuals over words and language. So, how much are you actually paying attention to the visual aspect of your personal brand and the emotional connection that people will have with it? Now, think about this as potentially being their reptilian brain. So, not just what they will logically need to know, but what is actually going to appeal to them without them even realizing that they are having an emotional reaction to that thing. Consider how you are integrating these personalized elements into your personal brand. How does it help them to solve the problem that they might have, for example? And research has showed that the marketplace is craving a personal connection. There was a study from Nielsen that showed that 33% of people trust brand messages, while 92% of people trust recommendations from a person, even if they don't know that person. My tip number 3 is to sign your name to your work. Now, I know this is one that may potentially make some people nervous. We've all been there when we are establishing a business or we're coming up with our branding ideas. We can often entertain all of those really creative or powerful or meaningful words that we want to consider as being the business name for what we have to offer the marketplace. But I want to challenge you to consider as a priority attaching your name to your business in some way. Now, this might be just your first name, this might be your first name and your last name, this might be your name attached to some sort of identifier related to your industry, which might be required if you have a particularly common name, for example. But if you use your name, it gives you an opportunity to automatically become unique in the marketplace. There is likely no one who has your exact name or who is using it in the exact way or industry that you want to be using it in. So consider this as a priority, and if for any sort of legal reasons or other reasons you can't use this, then move on to other options from there. But the reason that I think that it is such a great opportunity for you in your work is that it acts as a motivator. You are signing your name to your work, to your businesses, to your services. And when you do that, you are putting your name on the line. You're putting your reputation on the line instead of actually just hiding behind a vague word that could mean anything and that you could move on from. When it is something that is attached to your name, then you are always going to be putting your best foot forward in anything that you are offering the marketplace. Now, if the idea of using a name as a part of your brand is something that feels strange to you, I want you to think about the biggest brand names in the world. For example, consider Chanel, Christian Dior, Ralph Lauren, Louis Vuitton. These are all brands based around a name. And now when you think about the position that those brands have established in the marketplace, it's almost unimaginable to picture a world in which they didn't actually base an entire business around the names that they did. So while it might potentially feel uncomfortable to begin with, remind yourself that it's probably more normal than you might think. My tip number 4 is to make business personal through your personal brand. One of the best things about having your own business is that you haven't inherited the corporate branding guidelines that you must follow no matter what. You get to make these calls. You get to personalize things. You don't have to hide behind a corporate voice. You can add a personal voice to your communications as much as possible, to your marketing, to your branding. So at every opportunity of your brand, every touch point that that your customer has with your business, ask yourself if there is an opportunity to personalize that interaction. For example, this could be as simple as signing off some of your communications with a signature, for example. Now, you don't want to use your actual legal signature. This will just be a signature that you use as a part of your branding, but just little touches like that can help to make things personal in a way that a business brand can't do unless they are communicating from their staff. So take some of the principles that you would normally see and apply it to your own business. Be even more creative. Make your business stand out because of the level of personalization that your product and your service is able to offer that exchange compared to a bigger corporate organization, for example. Another way that you might be able to personalize your interactions with your customers or through your branding is to, wherever possible, actually be the one communicating with your customers directly. Now, I know there is a lot of focus at the moment on automated emails and actually having processes that just work in the background for you, but as much as possible, communicate when you can manage it directly with your customer. Have that personal interaction that they aren't able to get from corporate brands. You might also encourage your customers to be able to contact you directly. Maybe you offer your direct email in your marketing and through your branding as well. Maybe you encourage people to reach out to you directly on your social media, whether it's Instagram or LinkedIn, for example. And when it comes to your social media as well, make sure wherever you can that you are personally responding to comments that people provide on your social media, especially if you don't have a team around you. How do you personalize that experience they are having with your brand? And even if you do have a team, ideally have a team that is also responsible for doing this, because one of the best things about connecting with a business that is related to a personal brand is that you feel a personal connection to that entrepreneur. You want to be able to reach out to them and feel like they are actually someone who is interested in what you might have to say, who has valued the time that you have taken to provide a comment on any of their social platforms. Going back to branding, I think another really nice way that you can integrate a personal element into your business and your branding is by including personal notes. For example, you might have a corporate brand or you might be operating under your name, as we've spoken about, but throughout your marketing material or your branding, add personal notes wherever you can too. For example, you might have a note from yourself on your website, or you might have it through your pictures or in your proposals. You might actually have something that you sign off personally from yourself, just to personalize that product or service to an elevated level. Number 5 is to share the personal brand behind the brand. As a part of your social media strategy, make sure that there is an element of your social media pillars that is focused on humanizing your brand, the business brand that you have. What is the human element that people can connect with? Now, if you are an entrepreneur who has a business that involves a team, this can also include the members of your team. You might start to integrate them into your branding so that your customers actually feel like they have a connection to those people. They might not have a connection with you directly, but they trust the people that you connect them with because you have created a personal brand story for those other people as well. But if you are even just focused on yourself as a part of your business, think about the ways that you can share more of the person that is operating the business. So this might be that you encourage people onto your Instagram, for example. Now, even if your Instagram isn't actually related to your business, you don't treat it like a business page. This gives people the opportunity to see behind the scenes into what the life of the person running that business looks like. Now, it might be Instagram, it might be TikTok, you might have a YouTube vlog channel, for example. But whatever way you do this, it just provides another opportunity for people to connect with you on a personal level and differentiates you from more corporate brands. On this channel, I've talked about before Michael Hyatt's book, Free to Focus, where he talks about the 3 stages that we all have. We have the front stage, which is what people see. We have the backstage, which is all of that work that goes into the front stage, which people might not necessarily see. But then we also have the off stage, and that is all of the things that are seemingly unrelated to your work, but allow you to show up on those other 2 stages. Now, don't underestimate how much interest people might have in the backstage and the offstage elements of the business that you have created. While they might have an interest in your products and services, they might actually connect with an aspect of your personal brand or your personal life that relates to some of their own life experiences, their values, their interests, and their hobbies, which makes them want to choose to support your business over other potential offerings in the marketplace because they just feel like they have more of a connection with you as a person and what you represent. My tip number 6 is to create social proof. Remember that humans are naturally social beings. We are naturally tribal beings. Most of the time, we want to do what our peers are doing and not take too many risks outside of this. So when it comes to your business branding, remind yourself to integrate other personal brands into your branding story, particularly related to the customers that you have already interacted with. So, for example, you might include photography related to other customers, you might share customer stories, you might share case studies, success stories, you might have testimonials through your branding as well. You might highlight the number of people that you have worked with. And you want to make that as personal as possible so that people can see that there are real life people who have actually also paid for your products and services and have had a really good experience. Because remind yourself that when people are engaging in any sort of transaction, we really want to make sure that we are protecting our resources and that we aren't taking any risks that are potentially going to not deliver us the value that we are expecting. So make sure that you are highlighting the value that you are capable of delivering through the other personal brands that you integrate into your customer stories. With this idea of overcoming risks in mind, also ask yourself how your branding is highlighting your credibility. For example, this might even be including images relating to speaking engagements that you may have had, for example, because this shows that you have a particular level of expertise that has been trusted by other third parties. You might also have some sort of connection to other brands or organizations which are trusted in the marketplace. So how are you aligning your brand to those organizations and to those brands to create trust by association to your brand and to your business? If you want to learn more about storytelling for your brand, then check out my previous episode on this topic. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.